Okay, we are live.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I'd like to wish everybody a happy Cinco de Mayo. And unfortunately, we're having a meeting today, but if our meeting ends early, you'll still have time to go out and celebrate a little bit. So I'd like to go ahead and call to order our Brawley City Council meeting. Today is Tuesday, May 5th, 6 p.m. And we're meeting again by Zoom video conferencing. And everyone is in their respective homes with the exception of Roseanna and staff that are at the city chamber office. And we continue to meet this way because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Hopefully, maybe in next meeting, maybe we'll be able to resume our meetings back at the council chambers. But anyway, I'd like to thank all of you for joining us. If you're not able to join us live, you can always follow us on the Facebook, the Hub of Brawley EOC, or on the City of Brawley website. Okay, I'd like to go ahead and, like I said, call this meeting to order, and everyone is present. And we'll forego the invocation and the pledge, and I'm going to go ahead and ask for an approval of the agenda. And if you would, okay, if you would please state your name.
Sam Katzman.
Okay. Okay, I have a motion.
This is Donnie, second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes. Okay, moving on to item 2, public appearances and comments not to exceed 4 minutes. This is the time for the public to address the council on any item not appearing on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city council. Is there anyone there, Roseanna, for public comments?
Not this evening, thank you.
Did anyone submit anything that they would want us to cover during public comments?
No public comments were submitted to the office of the city clerk. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, moving on to item 3, approval of the consent agenda.
This is Donnie. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
This is George. I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to regular business. As part of our regular business today, item 4A, City of Brawley declaration of the local emergency as a result of COVID-19 pandemic. And we have a few updates. We have some invited guests and some staff that will be preparing, reporting on our emergency. First of all, we have an update by our interim Raleigh Fire Chief, Mike York. Mike?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council, and city staff. Brawley, Michael York, interim fire chief, Brawley Fire Department, providing an update on the current state of emergency declared by the city of Brawley. First, we can go through the current case as presented by the Imperial County Public Health Department. Within the Imperial County, we have tested a total of 2,682 persons. Of those tested, we have identified 379 positive cases within the Imperial County. Of the 379 positive cases, 216 remain active. 154 of those cases have recovered. I have no breakdown as to the numbers within the city of Raleigh active and recovered. However, 84 of the total active cases were within the 92227 zip code. And regrettably, we have recorded 9 deaths related to COVID-19 within our county. Regarding our hospital status, city staff has been attending daily meetings of the Imperial County EOC where we receive an update from the Imperial County Public Health Department. Our hospital statuses are being updated daily. It appears that while they have patients they are treating, our hospitals are still operating within their parameters that they are available. One of the questions that's been come up quite a bit lately and was directed towards this office, as much of our business, commerce, and lives are attached to our neighbor across the border. We do not have very accurate data coming from south of the border. From the dashboard provided by Mexico, it looks like a total of 1,550 cases in all of Baja California, but no breakdown directly from Mexicali. On Monday morning, it was shared through liaison groups at the EOC meeting that Mexicali hospitals have reported that they're at 90+% capacity for treating those patients. And a request was made through the state, from the state of Baja to the state of California, for ventilators, and ventilators were provided to assist them. Back here at home, again, all of our efforts have been focused at continuing to provide the city services that are within the guidelines while protecting our city employees. We have been able to secure face coverings for all of our city employees to comply with guidelines. And as for first responders, we are currently operating with a PPE, personal protective equipment stash that is sufficient for a few weeks. We have no guaranteed supply, which is unfortunate, but we are working with our local and state partners to procure more PPE, and we are on the list to receive, just as everybody else. And that is about what we're at on updates. If there are any questions, I would try to answer them.
Thank you, Chief York. Any questions from council? No? Okay. Thank you very much. A very good report, and we'll let you off the hook now, I guess. Thank you. Okay, next on our agenda, we have invited a county representative from Imperial Public Health Department, Director Janet Angulo, and Deputy Director Jeff Lamore, to give us an update from their department. And do we have Janet on board?
Jeanette Angulo is present with us here today in council chambers,
Okay.
as well as Jeff Lamore, and both are prepared to present the council with comments.
Thank you. Welcome, Jeanette. Thank you for participating in our meeting.
Thank you for having us. It's a pleasure. Good evening, council members. So we do have information about the Mexicali numbers that we would like to share with you. And as of today, 5/5, Mexicali had 691 positive cases with 65 deaths. And so that information we have available, and we try to update our situational reports with that go out to the EOC with that information. So if in the future you're in need, we can gladly share those numbers with you. I'm not going to go into the cases. That information was already provided. I think I'm just going to jump right in to the latest topic, which is roadmap to recovery. I think that's of interest to everyone. And we had really good news earlier in the week, and that was a phased approach that the California governor shared with us. And we had conversations with the state yesterday morning and this morning. And what that means is we're opening up, doing a soft opening this Friday. And so what that soft opening of businesses, what that means is pretty much curbside delivery and online sales and curbside pickups. And that means businesses such as bookstores, florists, home furnishing stores, antique stores, sporting goods. There's going to be a total of 19 sectors. We're still waiting for that information to come out from the state. The state will be issuing guidelines. So as soon as that's made available to us, we will share with you. Now within stage 2 or phase 2 of that recovery map, there's a higher risk category that if we meet certain metrics, then we're allowed to move on with opening offices and dine-in restaurants. That's where I want to talk a little bit more about what does it mean for us at the local level. So we need to demonstrate that we are ready to move into that higher risk phase. So we need to submit a readiness plan and an attestation from our local health officer, Dr. Monday, certifying pretty much that we're ready to move on and open up other sectors of our community. So there are 6 areas that we need to look into, and that will be part of our readiness plan. And our stability. First one is stability with the cases in our community. Are we ready to move on? What's the current activity? And so in Imperial County, we were a little late to the game, meaning that we're starting to see a lot more cases now than what other counties saw earlier in, or late March. So we're starting to see that activity pick up. So they're using some metrics, and that's the number of positive cases in our community within the last 14 days. We need to take a look at that. And at this point in time, we're not meeting that metric, but I'm sure as more testing is available and as more interventions are made possible, we will meet those metrics. And then the other area that will be looked on is the deaths, number of deaths within the last 14 days. And we haven't had a death in the last 14 days, so that's really, really good. The second area that we will be looking at and including in our readiness plan is testing, our ability to test in our community. So that we have OptumServe, that was through a state initiative where community testing was made available. We kicked off with it today. We're excited. Individuals can make their appointments online or via phone call. But not only that, we have our local healthcare systems doing testing. So they either work with the commercial labs and secure the testing kits, and then they submit back to the commercial labs, or healthcare providers can actually buy testing kits. And this is diagnostic testing, molecular testing for COVID-19. So over the last few days, we've seen an increase in the amount of testing done in our community. So I have no doubt that that will be met, the minimum daily requirements of testing in our community. There's 4 other areas, and I'll just go over them really quickly, and it's containment capacity. And one of the areas is being able to investigate. If there's a positive, we need to be able to trace and investigate and ensure that the individuals have the information they need, that they're linked to their primary care provider, and if in need of additional instruction, they know where to go to or who to call. With contact tracing, I do want to say that our epidemiology department takes care of that. We have a plan to deal with the surge. We have 4 staff that make up the original epidemiology team, but because of the pandemic, we had to cross-train an additional 8 individuals. So we have a total of 12 now, but that's not going to be enough with this ramping up of testing. So we're working with our county district attorneys, sheriff's department, probation. So just yesterday, we trained an additional 11 individuals. That's not going to be enough for contact tracing if we do see a huge surge in positive cases. So we're also working with our local hospitals to see what the availability would be for investigators. We're also working with our San Diego State University nursing program and Imperial Valley College. They did not hesitate to say, we're on board, we'll help you with whatever you need. So we'll be tapping into the nursing programs. And then finally, the state launched an initiative where they will be making some manpower available. It won't be on site, but that's still some help. They could still do some investigation work over the phone. So I have no doubt that we'll meet that requirement. And the second element within containment capacity is the availability of housing homeless individuals. And so I'm currently working with our social services department. There's several programs in place that do this. They provide housing to individuals that are homeless. So we're going to build that into our plan. 3 other areas, and I'll go over them really quick, I promise. It's hospital capacity. So I'm working closely with El Centro Regional and Pioneers Memorial Hospital and making sure that, you know, they have at least 35% surge capacity to treat COVID-19 positive cases. And then we need to ensure that there's a plan in place at the hospitals to protect their workforce and ensure that they have enough personal protective equipment to treat those COVID-19 cases. Item number 5 is working with our vulnerable populations. So it's more so with the skilled nursing facilities and congregate living facilities, and ensuring that they have adequate supply of protective, personal protective equipment. And that's important because if something were to happen and residents at these facilities would need to be hospitalized or would need to get, you know, care, they would end up, you know, going to the hospitals. And what we're trying to do here is do a lot of prevention so that doesn't happen. So we're keeping a close eye on that. And then finally, we need to have a plan in place. So if we start reopening, if something goes wrong, all of a sudden we start seeing huge spikes in our COVID cases, or there's a lot of clusters, we need to be able to step back, scale back, and reinstitute some measures. So that's what we're working on, and that's only stage 2 of our roadmap to recovery. So again, stage 1 and the lower risk, as soon as this Friday, we're looking at working with you know, some of the businesses, the chambers, working on plans, making sure that the businesses are actually ready to open up. Now, stage 2, that'll take just a little longer, and we're doing this because of the health and safety of our community. And again, we don't want to just, what am I trying to say here? Open the door to businesses with the light off. You know, they're going into the dark. We want to take care of our businesses too and make sure that they have everything in place to conduct businesses in a healthy way, you know, lowering risk at all times. Now, I know there's been a lot of question about, you know, certain types of businesses, and it's been, you know, more of, you know, the barbershops and the beauty salons and the dog groomers. And we understand, we totally understand that, you know, the health and safety of the community is important, and also our business community, that's also very important. So we're working with the state on these kinds of, we're talking to them about what can we do to move some of this a little bit faster. We understand it's a little higher risk, but the conversation is happening. The door is open. The state has identified these in stage 3, but not to say, which is later reopening, but it's not to say that it's completely off the table. So we are doing our best to move forward in a very cautious way, so that we don't have to backtrack or take too many steps back. And so, am I missing anything, Jeff? Okay, saying I covered it pretty much. Oh, one other comment, and this is something that, you know, we've been discussing with some of the chambers of commerce, is, and it goes back to taking care of our businesses as well, because we understand there's local health officer orders and state health officer orders and health and safety codes that, you know, they're in place. So the state has made it clear that, you know, for some of these businesses that hold licenses, we just want to make sure that they're in line with what their boards their boards are stating that is allowable, because at the end of the day, we don't want to, the outcome for businesses, we don't want it to be negative when it comes to licensing or other issues that may come about because of a rushed reopening. So we're just taking everything as a whole and, trying to move, a little faster, but also being very cautious.
Okay, thank you, Janet. Does anyone have any questions at this point?
I think I might have a question. I maybe a statement too. I don't want to put Janet on the spot. But however, in my observation out there throughout the valley and El Centro and Raleigh primarily is that there are quite a few businesses that are open already. If I go out there and I go to Imperial Hardware or Rite Aid or Walmart or Vons or any other Lowe's or Target or Costco or any of those places or service stations or convenience stores, et cetera, there's a lot of businesses that are open out there. Now, most of them are practicing certain safety things, but my concern is when we're moving slower with some of the other businesses like bookstores and clothing stores, some of the other retail, is that it appears that we're moving pretty slow with those. And I can understand the restaurant side, I can understand the haircut and barbershop side, but with these other businesses already open and everybody supposedly adhering to certain safety standards, I don't understand the fact that we're not allowing them to open other than curbside and online ordering. I don't think that does anything for most of them. And so that's my concern here in Brawley. Now, we're not impacted as much as El Centro, and I understand some of El Centro's motives for possibly opening up sooner or doing some other things that they've been doing. However, I do think we do have some small business here that are impacted negatively, but I see maybe hundreds of people going in the other businesses. Now, we wait in line, we wear masks, we sanitize, everything's sanitized. I don't know why a small business can't do that with a limited number of clientele that they're having to do. So what are your thoughts on that, or what are we seeing on that?
Mm-hmm.
So Jeff Lamore is here with me, so he can talk a little bit more about that.
Good afternoon, Jeff Lamore with the County Public Health.
Good afternoon. Welcome.
There we are.
Welcome, Mr. Lamore.
Thank you.
I guess you can
I'm
address
doing
that
something not
question.
corrective.
I guess you can address that question first.
How about
and
this?
then-
I can squat down.
And then we'll, I think some of us may have additional questions, but if you would like to address that one, that would be good.
Sure, I definitely would. I would assume as you're aware, as part of the governor's executive order, they did recognize what's considered essential services and those businesses that provide that. So as you pointed out, Vons, Walmart, those that are providing food services, they're providing auto repair, they're providing electrical services, or computer equipment, things of that nature that are considered critical services for our critical infrastructure workers. So that was the intent of having fuel stations open to provide gas, and that's part of the service component of that. Again, the food components. We have our meat processing facilities, which are considered essential service because they're providing food to the community. So our farm and labor working organizations out there, those are considered essential workers. So you'll see that they are open. It's those through the governor's identified list of businesses that they did not consider essential. But we're moving away from that essential services versus non-essential services. We're moving to kind of a risk-based assessment, a low risk versus high risk. And we very much agree with you with regards to getting businesses open as soon as possible. The governor's identified those businesses, what they've considered non-essential in the prior classification, as those bookstores, the close contact type businesses, the personal hair or the personal care businesses, the hair salons, the nail salons, the barber shops. Those, because of the high contact, that they're a high risk category, they're a high risk organization or business, and therefore they're in their perspective, their assessment, their initial assessment, they're not essential at this point in time. Again, moving away from essential, our plan is, and we've worked on our roadmap, is to have these businesses, those that are considered low risk, as Jeanette just explained, in the phase 2, which we hope to have opening up on Friday. A lot of those, the bookstores, the other types of businesses. She gave you some examples of those, but it's all of those that fall under that low risk category. Now we're waiting for the governor's office to provide kind of a more detailed description of this phased approach, and we hope to have that. We're supposed to have that as of yesterday. We're hoping to have that by Thursday or tomorrow or Thursday, and that will allow us to further refine our roadmap for opening these businesses. And then I know Jeanette she may have gotten into specifically talking about phase 2, and there's an ability for us to, based on the criteria she went through with you, on expediting the phased approach as well. And that's something that we're looking at. We are pushing back on the state. Our health officers pushing back on the state. Our executive office, administrative office is pushing back on the state with regards to the different businesses. That one of the questions that I had for the state, for Dr. Angel, had to do with the personal care businesses out there, the hair salons and nail salons and so forth, is to, is there a way to phase them into phase 2 versus having them into phase 3? And if there are certain mechanisms that we can put in place, like by appointment only, and we'll continue to push on that. I think that it's critical, it's important to get these businesses opened as well, but also we need to do it in a mindful but in a safe manner. We want to ensure that the public feels comfortable going into these facilities. They don't feel like they're being put at risk, but also being mindful that these businesses do need to get back into business. So we're going to push where we can. We know the drug grooming service is a big issue. We agree with you with that, or with the city with regards to that. And again, that's something we're going to push back up the ladder to the state to see if we can get that one incorporated into phase 2, or at least get them to agree with regards to how we want to open it up here in Imperial County. So these things, and that's how we're working together with all the cities coming together to address these issues and coming up with a unified approach to serve our business community as well as to serve our community from a safety perspective.
Okay, I had a question in regards to Jeanette was talking about a readiness plan that had to be submitted to Dr. Monday. Is that
Yes.
a plan that's submitted by the city, or who would submit that plan or get? Yeah, I wasn't clear on that.
So the readiness plan it's submitted by the county. The governor has identified the county as the lead to prepare that plan. And obviously we're going to do that in collaboration with our cities. So we're going to be working with our cities, with the stakeholders, to get this information together so we can share it on how we've achieved these goals. So we're going to need, when I say that, we need information from our social services regarding homeless. We'll need information from both hospitals and their plans and how they're going to handle their implementation of this aspect of that particular priority. So, or that readiness component. So working collectively and getting that information, we'll be submitting that to the state. It'll require the health officer certification. Prior to that, it will go to the board also for their, I would assume their signature, their approval, and then from there it's submitted to the state. With the health officer's signature, it's not submitting to the state. It's not requiring. We're not asking for the state's approval. We're certifying that this plan, we're ready to go. It's our readiness plan. We're ready to administer it based on meeting these criteria. So once the health officer certifies it, in essence, it's been approved.
And that has to be done at every stage or every phase?
That's a great question.
So at this point, it's only for stage 2.
At this point, it's only for stage 2. We'll see what they do for stage 3 and 4, but at this point, it's stage 2. And again, there's no identified time frame. I believe that they purposely left that out so that each county is going to be able to implement it at the speed that's most efficient for them to administer the phase, or to rapidly move through the phase. So it's going to be left to us, to the cities and the county, as we work through this collectively, to do it in a mindful manner and in a safe manner, so we can do it as expeditious as we can, but keeping those two items in mind.
So where are we right now with the submission of that particular plan? Are they working? You're working on that already? Is that?
We are very much, the roadmap itself, we've been working on that now for I would say a couple of weeks. We've been working on that for a couple of weeks with stakeholder input, the city's input with that. This readiness plan, we were just advised that we have to submit that as of yesterday. And that is something that we hope to have done or have ready fairly quickly. So we are very quickly working on that to get that ready to submit.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from council?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Lamore and Ms. Angulo. Mine's a little bit more overarching, and I will start with this. Thank you for all that you guys have done. Needless to say, this has been a challenging time for the county and all of us, obviously, not just in the country, obviously worldwide. But I think the governor's approach, maybe not looking, I don't know if Mr. Lamore, if they can hear us, but
Oh.
okay.
Where'd you go?
Yeah, it kind of
Tying my shoes.
We want you to stay there.
I'm here.
I think in light of what you're saying also, because I think there's going to be obviously pretty significant discussion around the valley, especially for those of us as city council. Naturally, we're just as motivated as what you shared. We want to see our businesses open, and we want to do it safely. We want to do it obviously in a measured way. And speaking of the data, I think we can all argue that so many different ways. I mean, you can, so here's my question, just looking at the state. I think the state's approach is really treating the entire, all 58 counties as if they're the same. And clearly there's population differences, density differences. And I know we've fared okay as a state overall, but as you know, as we're looking at these various stages and these metrics to kind of move on to these various stages. And I think a comment was made, obviously there's increased testing, more testing being made available. Naturally, the assumption would be with more testing, you may have more positive cases, et cetera. So, I mean, with all that said, it appears to me from the dashboard as a county, we've done actually fairly well. And I know if you look at it day to day, there's been maybe sharper increases, maybe from, maybe recently from my understanding, or some increases in a number of cases that have been in the hospital, et cetera. But it just is there an overall, hasn't our curve as an overall been relatively flat? And because to our difficulty is going to be, as we're looking at these businesses, instead of naming what can open, wouldn't it be much more of an approach of what can't open? And I think you mentioned, a few of them, barbershops, et cetera. So just two things are, are we able to really push ahead as a county? And we're not LA, we're not San Diego, we're not the Bay Area. And we really need to treat our county as if our own, with our own data, correct? And with that said, I also want to kind of throw out what businesses, and as these phases, they weren't very well defined, because I know we don't have a lot of time to talk about them here. What ultimately can we expect beyond this Friday in terms of milestones? I mean, I didn't really hear any dates, because I know they were predicated on metric. What's to keep us together as a county and a city moving forward and shaping and making some of these decisions, how we can open these businesses in a measured way, just as you've said. But it sounded like we're still very bound to what the governor's saying.
Understood. So let's go back a little bit to your first comment with regards to this, the governor's overall executive order being, and then their plan to open up to their roadmap, the state roadmap to recovery, and that it's kind of a one-size-fits-all approach. And as this evolves through the state, it is, if you're monitoring what the state has done, the various press releases that the governor has provided, or briefings that he's provided, this is a work in progress. And how they're laying this out, there's been tremendous pushback from various counties, I'm sure from elected officials and from health officers, from the public health departments and the business sector as well. And I think that's also attributed to this latest discussion with regards to beginning to move towards this, as he continues to indicate when he was talking about opening. We were talking about opening. His comment was he was talking about opening, maybe discussing it about a month from now to a few weeks from now to a few days, and now we're talking about Friday. So it's moved very quickly with regards to that. But I mean, they're figuring out as they move along as well. So they are leaving it to, in my belief, they're leaving it to the local jurisdictions to develop and frame their own plans based on, they're the ones who know best what's happening in their community. They know what types of businesses. You're right, we're not Los Angeles. There's a variety of different type of business structures that are in place in Los Angeles that don't exist here. Same with San Diego. We have a large ag community here that maybe Los Angeles in certain aspects of it they don't have. Our interactions with in our workforce that comes from Mexicali, definitely different here than it is in Tulare, California. So the dynamics are much different. So we're having to look at that and take all of that into account. So I think that we are forming a plan that's going to be best for our community, and it is geared specifically for Imperial County. As far as timing, I don't believe, my belief is that the county or the state's not going to necessarily dictate specific timeframes. Effective, 2 weeks from now or 3 weeks from now, this type of business may open. I think they're going to leave some of that latitude to us to select. I think if they go in, there's certain types of businesses, those close contact businesses that I mentioned, the personal hair or the personal care industry. They're going to identify certain select businesses that definitely they flag for certain types of phases. But if it's not identified, then if we can open it up in phase 2, then we're going to move forward to that. But the key is making sure that the business understands that what measures they need to put. And that's really important, that we need to make sure we provide our businesses with guidance on what are the basics that they need to do to successfully open their business, so that it's not just opening the business that's going to bring the customers in. The customers still need a level of comfort that they can walk into a business and they're not subjecting themselves to possible exposure. So that they're going to want to have some type of level of comfort. We're talking about putting together a plan where businesses can. It's a social distancing / a social distancing and safety plan. And that's something that we're also looking at providing to businesses, that they can, and it walks them through on how to develop their social distancing concepts specifically for their building, but also then a safety plan that is meaningful and useful for them to implement for their employees and their customers. And they can post this plan in their window so that the community knows that they've gone through this process and that they have taken them into consideration, as well as their employees, and their employees have a level of comfort. So these are things that we're looking at specifically for. This is not part of the governor's order. This is something that we're looking at how we can be for our businesses, that they have for their customers, that they can get, they can go back into these businesses and begin to make purchases and so forth.
Yeah, and Jeff, most of that's been, the precedent's been set, right? Because you mentioned the essential services, and essential or not, there were just still large-scale businesses that remained open. So I think kind of the sort of the wisdom here is we've kind of almost proven as a society that we can do this effectively. We can social distance, and again, back with respect to 400 cases, and you still have these large box stores that are operating with fair amounts of people, with a good process in place. So
right. That's the key. They have a good process in place. I agree.
Yeah. And so the thought is there's already a working template. So I would imagine we can do this pretty rapidly and stay safe. I think a lot of us in the Valley know when Johnny's reopened, and even stepping into getting that back reopened and getting in there again, it's amazing. It's a different business, but just like all these businesses that are kind of open themselves back up, that are allowed to open up, they've been able to show that. So this is good information. I just want to know that, and because I know there's going to be more discussion on our part, but again, very helpful. But it doesn't sound like, but for Friday, we have any other really a date or an idea of what stage 2 and what that might entail really at this point yet, right?
We don't have a date, and I don't think we'll have it. I think what we're looking at is we're getting these guidelines. We hope they come this evening. We hope they come tomorrow. If they don't come tomorrow, hopefully they're here Thursday. Okay. That information so that we can better identify what it is we're doing in stage 2. But we're moving forward with getting our readiness plan together, because that's the key component to bring in that second phase and that expedited phase, and making sure that we meet those metrics. So working collectively, and I think also that making sure that that every city, that the cities here in the county are part of this plan, and they weigh in on that, and that we have our goal is to have your buy-in on this, that we can move collectively as a community, a united community. So it's for the betterment of the community as a whole, and for business as a whole, moving in that direction.
Mr. Lamore, this is George Nava. How are you?
I'm good, sir. How are you, yourself?
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Listen, just a question on the topic with respect to like best practices, and Councilmember Wharton addressed some of these items. There are businesses obviously that are open, and everybody's doing things just a little bit differently, but you see maybe some common practices taking place where there's like, face coverings at the cash registers at some businesses and other things. Is there like a list of maybe best practices? I know the business community is very broad, and so not every business is the same, but is there a list of best practices? Obviously 6 feet of social distancing is important. That's been labeled in some businesses that I've visited recently. But is there something that the county can come up with, even if it's a very short list of things that businesses can do, whether that's a flower shop that's going to be opening up soon, whether that's a restaurant that's actively in business? Is there anything that the county can provide to help us send the message to our business community from the county's perspective?
Yes. So what we have is part of the roadmap that we've been working on. So we have the phased approach. We bulleted the types of industry, but within that there is a summary, a guidance document that then kind of walks you through just that on with the type of industry. So it's not necessarily, it hasn't drilled down to the florist shop, but it's more kind of an overview of a type of industry: retail business, commercial business, industrial manufacturing, and within that, what we've done is we have identified some of the, as you call the BMPs, the best management practices, as to what the business can implement for their employees, but also for their customers. And again, part of that plan that I described earlier is a component of that. So yes, and it varies from industry. So they're from, as I said, with the retail industry and the commercial and industrial or manufacturing to restaurants. The type of guidelines are going to be there'll be some similarities, but there'll be some differences with regards to that on either whether it be using single-use utensils initially, or just how they, if they're using single-use menus, or having they have plastic menus that they have to wipe those menus down after each use. So there are guidelines that help kind of break that out, so that gives them a better understanding of how to manage their business. And a lot of them, they already have this down. A lot of them have gone through and they've looked at a variety of other resources throughout, not just California, but throughout the United States. So a lot of them are actually can provide us feedback. So that's part of our reaching out with the cities and with the chambers and getting that feedback, having them look at this document and see what the best way to provide these businesses with the key tools that they need to successfully go through and implement that. So yes, we do have that as part of our roadmap. And again, that's part of the feedback that we're asking for. From the cities, from the chambers, from the business communities, so that we can hopefully hit that. And it's a living document. So if there's some aspects that as we start going through this and we're getting businesses and our pushes to get businesses back up and operating, as we do that, then if there are some flags that we start to see, we may then update that business component, that guidance, if you will, that summary, to add those needed elements to that, and make sure we reach out to our businesses within that element so that they can continue to operate in that manner.
Well, thank you for the information. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I have one question. This is Councilmember Luke Hamby. This may be for Ms. Angulo. It's regarding the numbers. I believe you said that we're at 9 deaths total, but none in the last 14 days. But I thought I saw it was 8 before the weekend, and now it's at 9. Is there some delay in the reporting of those deaths, maybe?
There is. And so I encourage you to go to our dashboard, and there's the different trend lines in there. So our death was actually, the last death was on April 21st. That was the actual date of the death. Okay. But by the time it gets to the health department, then there's that delay. The other delay, and again, I encourage you to go to our website. So by the time the commercial laboratories provide us with the test results, 2-3 days might have gone by. So, that's one. And then the other thing is we're reporting Monday through Friday. So that Monday, you'll see a good chunk of cases, but there's a trend line because it's important to know, when those test results were actually reported. So there's a trend line that highlights cases by result date. And okay. So as of yesterday, the last test result received was in May 1st. And on May 1st, we only had 3 positive cases. And see, for those keeping track on the main dashboard, that may not make sense.
Right.
So again, within the breakdowns, you'll find this trend line. So yeah, so May 1st, we had 3 positives. April 30th, we had 4 positives. April 29th, a little higher, 12 positives. So there's variation of data, and we try to be, or provide as much as we can in the different tables because there's some lag time. Of course, the commercial lab needs time to report it to us by the time they run the specimen to the time they actually report out. So,
Okay, thank you.
mhm.
Okay, if there's no other questions, want to thank both of you for attending our meeting and providing us with this very valuable information. And we look forward to that report either, I guess, Thursday or maybe Friday. And if you need, of course, if you need any input from our city, we'll be here to provide any information or assistance.
And Roseanna has been great, and we've shared some of our draft documents. And yes, we really need the input and the support. For sure, PMH has already mentioned that, yes, they're there to support, and we will need some documents from there, just again, ensuring that they have the plans in place to deal with an increased surge. But thank you for that, and thank you for having us.
And thank you both for all the hard work that you're doing. I know it's been arduous, but everybody in the community appreciates it very much. We all do. Thank you.
Thank you. You take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye.
Okay, let's see. Moving on, we have another presentation by Katie Luna with the Brawley Chamber of Commerce, Executive Director, and she's also the representative for the Ivy Business Recovery Task Force. Katie?
Hi, good evening.
Hi, Katie. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. So I want to start tonight with the update for the Chamber of Commerce. Our chamber still continues to be closed to the public. Our staff continues to work remotely. We are reachable via website, email, and phone. We have lots going on, but as we're here celebrating Cinco de Mayo, I can't help but feel there's something missing in my life, and that really is our Mega Monday Mixer, which would have been yesterday. And that event is always a ton of fun at the Hidalgo, and so we definitely missed it. And we missed in April our Pearl Valley Taco Fest, which was the Taco Showdown. And we expect to continue to see our events on hold until further notice, until we get the state and the county to approve those public gatherings. We don't know how long that's going to go on. We're keeping our fingers crossed that it's not going to take us into the later part of the year. We're looking toward June to have conversations with the rodeo committee to find out what the rodeo circuit is going to look like, to see what the rodeo committee decides. And then as well as with council members and the city to find out if we're a green light for cattle call. It would be so disheartening if we didn't have a year with cattle call. So that's kind of where we are with our events right now. We've missed seeing everyone at our mixers and all of that stuff. Another note, our Branding Iron Gala will be on hold as well until we figure out what the future is going to look like. So switching over to the task force, early on in this whole ordeal, we identified a need to have clear communication lines with our business resource partners, with the Small Business Development Center, IBEDC, the County Workforce Development, the other chambers, the joint chambers. We've added Reliance Public Relations also to our task force. So the Imperial Valley Business Recovery Task Force has a focus right now of really supporting the business community, and that takes all different shapes right now. And so to date, I just want to give you an update what we've done to date. In the beginning of this process, we spent our time and energy focused on directing businesses to funding avenues, the PPP, the EIDL with the SBA, as well as any private grants that might have been available. We we directed them to resources. Also with furloughs and layoffs, we directed them to EDD and information that they were going to need for that. So really preparing them to take on these next few weeks. But as weeks are now into months, it's becoming a little bit more difficult. We also implemented a call center. So if businesses had a question, they can call the call center and be directed to the individual that might have the answer for them. We don't have all the answers. The answers are changing every day to some of the questions, but we will make sure that we get an answer. If we don't have it on hand, we'll make sure that we get it to the business owner. We're currently in the process of surveying the business community throughout the county. The task force is a countywide task force, and we are surveying the business community to find out lots of information. We want to know if they've applied for funding, if they've received funding, if they've been denied funding. We want to know if they've laid employees off. We want to know what steps they're taking to prepare their business to reopen. So we have a survey that's out right now. It's a short survey, but an impactful survey. And so I'll be happy to forward that link over. And if you have the time, please, for the businesses, take that survey. And when we get the results at the end of that, it should be open for about another 2 weeks. And once we get the results of that, we'll share it with everyone. We have been in discussion with the county, with the county task force that they have, as well as a few members of our task force have had conversations with the county in regards to opening businesses and fast tracking reopening and how we can do that. We have a big concern with opening without preparing the businesses. So we want to get businesses open, but at the same time we say, let's open the door. We want to make sure they have their sanitizer, their mask, their gloves, whatever they need to protect themselves and their employees and their guests, with the idea being that we don't want any employer to go back to business unprepared and opening themselves up to any type of lawsuit. So we want to make sure that we can support the businesses in that way. And part of that is finding local sources. If we can, we'll start local for some of those items that they're going to need to reopen. I'm sure you've heard or you've read the great retooling that one of our Brawley companies has done. Badlands has taken some of their byproduct and turned that into a production of sanitizers. And we want to be able to look around the county and find out if there's any other manufacturing that can retool what they're doing to supply some of those must-haves when the business is open. Beyond that, we want to be able to, we want to be able to look outside of the county for resources for the businesses, so that when they're ready to open their door, we know that they've taken all the steps that they can to sanitize their business and to comfort their clients and guests that are going to be coming in. Going forward, we will start to identify additional local distributors for PPE and sanitizers and such. We will also, through the task force, as well as through the individual chambers across the county, we will be promoting who is open and how they are operating, so how they're preparing. So for example, if a restaurant is right now operating with curbside and delivery, but let's say down the line they're going to be opening with seated dining, we want to distribute that information and let people know what to be prepared for when they go to that business. So as much as we can do that throughout all the chambers across the county, we're going to focus on that so that the public will know. We have great faith in our business community. We've seen businesses put together emergency plans. They have pulled out all the stops to take care of their businesses, their employees. Their employees are an extension of their families, and so they're doing everything they can to protect their employees, and we want to just be there in a general sense to support them. We expect to see, as we gear up for businesses going back, we expect to see a slow return, so a slow return of customers coming back, which will put the businesses in a cash crunch, because they're trying to get back. They're trying to bring their employees back. Some of them may have had PPP for 8 weeks and now they don't. And so what are they going to do, right? So we're continuing to look for funding options for businesses. We're from the U.S. Chamber and the Cal Chamber and the Chamber perspective, we are looking at how we can get the PPP program extended so that businesses can get refunded if they need to, if they have a slower start than others. So a lot of, it's going to take a lot of work to get businesses back in order, in running order, and with customers. We did learn today that the SBA opened up their emergency injury disaster loan to ag businesses. And so we'll be sharing that information as well. We've shared that with the Farm Bureau. They'll be sending that information out to their membership. And so that's a snapshot of where we are with the Business Recovery Task Force. We do have a website. It's continuously being updated. So right now we're trying to get some of that business toolkit information out there. George, I think it was you that had the question about the list or the short list of here's what you got to do in order to open. And we've asked the county to take each bullet in their first phase and their second phase, take each bulleted industry or identified sector of business and put a one-pager together with that information so that it's easily digestible. So a business owner doesn't have to spend an hour going through a document and having a hard time understanding what it is. We want a one page that says, if you're a restaurant or a hairdresser or a nail salon or whatever it is, here's one page of requirements that is required for you to open your business. So Jeff has been great, and we're hoping to get some more of those documents coming out, and we'll share those through our website. Our website, ivbizrecovery.com. It's continuously being updated, and you can go there for more information. And with that, I just thank you guys for continuing to work. I know when we talk about essential, we really do. I know I personally feel every worker, every job is essential, and especially to our county, being with our unemployment rates and what have you on a regular basis, everything is essential here as far as business. And so we are trying to push a fast track to get the businesses open, and we look forward to that day.
Okay, thank you, Katie. Council, any questions from council?
Yes, I had just a question. In terms of the business community, I believe that, and not with all due respect to the county health department, I believe that when you talk about essential businesses or you talk about all of that type of thing, Katie, I believe that the health department, from their comments, are concerned about customer safety in that business. But I believe that the businesses will implement whatever is necessary in order to get the customers back. If the customer chooses not to go, they're not going to go due to safety or whatever that they identify in that situation. But I still believe that we're delaying the opening of businesses that could be open right now. And I don't want to put the health department on the spot or the county or the city or anybody else, but I do believe from what I'm getting from businesses out there, they believe that many of them should be open. It's not fair to them to not be open at this point in time. So while I agree with public safety and I would be concerned with certain people maybe frequenting businesses in downtown, I do believe that we must make every effort to get those businesses open. If we go into July, many businesses are going to be shuttered because they will never be able to survive. And I believe that there's not enough emphasis based upon the speed of opening up those businesses, based upon what I heard today and what I'm seeing throughout the state. So I believe we're going to have to take some kind of proactive measures. I'm not sure this is the time to do that, but I also know that I'm hoping to get input from businesses locally, and I'm hoping that the chamber can, get those businesses excited about pushing back against or pushing the state, and not necessarily against, but pushing the state and pushing the county to open those businesses. I think the city is kind of bound by the county in some ways and by the state especially. So we need to make an effort to do that. And I'm hoping that that's what Katie and the business community is doing, the chambers overall throughout the county.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the, this week, actually, we have lots of developments that have happened at the state level with reopening. And one of the things that the county has done, which we're very gracious that they've done this, is they've left the door open for conversation so that we can fast track areas that they have felt or the state has felt should not be open. So, as we go through this process, we're going to look at those areas and say, okay, you're saying it can't be open, but why? And where's the solution to opening it? And so the door is open for conversation, and we definitely plan on continuing the conversation and pushing and truly understanding, okay, what is stopping you from opening? Is it the business needs to have more protective measures? Is it the customers need to have more protective measures? But whatever that is, let's get to it so we can get them open.
Right.
If I could add a comment, though, one thing that we have to consider, and I brought it up at our last meeting, is the fact that, there are a number of people that are unemployed. They're receiving additional unemployment funds, and so there may not be the desire for many to return back to work right away. And so for various reasons, it could be for health, and it could be financial, or maybe both in some cases. But that's one thing we have to consider, and not every business may want to open. So that's the other challenge too, because you got to face back is that things won't be 100% with any business opening up, even with protective measures and everything else. So people's behavior has changed, at least temporarily, and it could be something that's permanent for many. But it's just going to be a long road to recovery, regardless of what takes place. I would just say, though, with respect to the local business community and the local smaller businesses, we just have to do everything we can to support them, and making sure that there are clear instructions on what they need to be doing. That's why I asked the question earlier of the county representatives, just to make it simple for everybody to understand, and so they're not faced with issues down the road. And Katie did bring up a good point, and it's been brought up previously, just with respect to litigation. If somebody goes into a restaurant or somebody goes into a business and ends up getting sick from being there, or they think they did, that opens them up for potential litigation. So there's a lot of things to consider with opening up, not just business in Brawley, throughout the state of California and in the county. So I just hope that, there is some further guidance sooner than later, at the very least. I know that there's a plan in place to open some businesses this coming Friday, and that I'm hopeful that introduces some people to better practices out there as well, because you're still seeing people that aren't following rules and they're not wearing masks out in public, and so that sometimes is very difficult to enforce as well. So just a lot of things to consider. It really isn't a pointed question about any of it. It's just a comment overall. I think we're going to find it very challenging, for the things that I listed. People not wanting to go back to work, business not being normal. And so some business owners may find it, somewhat advantageous to be shut down for a little bit, or operating in a manner where they're not having to employ as many people. It's going to be challenging.
Yeah, you're 100% correct, George. And I've made a big effort in picking up the phone and talking directly with our members. And there are a few who are small, very small. They just 3 or 4 people in their office, and they've decided to just shut down completely. Of course, they have the ability to do that, to just shut down completely, walk away, and then come back 4 or 5 months from now and start it up again. And yeah, you bring up a good point with the workers possibly not wanting to come back to work. That poses a lot of other questions, and hopefully we'll have clear answers. But is an employer, does the employer have to keep that job for that specific person, or if they decide they don't want to come back, can the employer open that job up? So there's a lot of questions that are still not 100% clear, and we want to make sure that when the business is ready to open, that they have as much information as they can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Luke?
Yeah,
Donnie?
Not so much a question, but a comment like George, is that in addition to what he mentioned about the unemployment package being more attractive to some people than going back to work, along the lines of something that Jeanette Angulo talked about, is the certain businesses that have like a state board that they answer to. Even if a city says that they're okay to open back up, but the state board has not okayed that, then they risk losing a license or being fined by their own board. So that's an issue that probably is going to require some lobbying of those boards at a state level. And I don't know who is best to do that, if it's like a League of California Cities, if it's a joint chambers venture or what. But in addition to that, on our local level, I can see, and this may not be the case, but I can see where some businesses like restaurants, if they're going to be limited on the number of tables they can have available, it may not be profitable for them to take in half the amount of customers that they normally could. And they may decide that they want to just keep the curbside or, pickup or delivery services for a time until they can be fully open. So that's gonna, as George said, it's gonna be a process. It's gonna take some time to get everybody back up and running. But I hope that some changes are gonna take place rapidly, so that while it's not a one size fits all, and our county is certainly different than LA County or some of the larger population counties, but there are still some processes that we're going to have to follow in order for people to feel confident about patronizing businesses, or for business owners to feel confident about opening back up at a reduced scale.
Thank you, Luke. Donnie, did you have any comments or question?
No, thank you, Katie. And it would only be that one last thing. I think there were businesses that were already doing it right before they were shut down. So something else we should consider. They already had plans in place. So, and I'm particular to the health and wellness industry a little bit. So, Katie, I know you have members that are in that business, and so hopefully you're getting input from them. And I just don't see, again, those kind of businesses that are really dependent on subscription, on members paying dues. Right now, they're just shut down. They need to be able to turn the faucet on, and I'm sure there's a responsible way to get them going. So, and I'm not just saying that for Brawley, I'm saying that valley-wide. I mean, again, these are businesses that cannot operate very long without that revenue. It's all or nothing. They have no other. There's no curbside. There's no online sales. They are literally shut down, and I would really hate to see that happen to a valley like ours. So hopefully, Katie, also as you're putting up the fight for every segment of the industry, something else to consider. Just look at some of those businesses that already had a good plan in place before they were shut down.
Thank you.
Katie, I know that you've been providing assistance for those that are applying for loans. I saw a presentation on video from the City Health Center the other day. Have you gotten any feedback from them? Are some successful? Have they gotten funding, or what is the outlook right now with those?
Yeah, so we have serviced quite a few, and I say our job as the chamber is to connect that business, chamber and task force, to connect that business to the resource. So the processing assistance really comes in with the Small Business Development Center. They have the consultants there that can walk the business through the process. But we have seen quite a few of our businesses from the chamber apply for the PPP program, and quite a few have received funding. A few have been denied the funding. When we did a survey, we had about 60-40 split, so about 60% of the businesses that responded were awarded the funding, and about 40% said they were not awarded. But that could also be that they just haven't heard back yet. So we'll continue to survey and put those questions out there to find out, what we want to do at the end of all this is be able to take a measurement of the impact that this all created in terms of dollars, and look at that in a way where we can start to prepare for the future, and how can we service our business community better by learning from what the status and the situation that we're in now.
Okay, well, that's actually good news. I think 60-40, that's because most of the time what you hear is the bad news when people have not received anything. So it's good to hear that they have received funding. So, okay, we appreciate you coming, and we thank you and the staff and the rest of the partners for all the work that you're doing for Brawley and for the whole county. I'm sure that everybody really appreciates all the hard work that you're doing through the chambers and through the workforce development agencies. Thanks for participating, Katie. Oh,
Hey, Norma.
yes.
I got cut out for part of that discussion. I don't know. I think I got kicked off or something for some reason. I came back
Oh.
on though, but I missed about a couple
I
minutes.
knew, I felt like there was something that didn't something went wrong, but I'm not sure
My
what.
screen froze, and then
Okay.
everybody was still on there, but it froze, and then it put me back out and then brought me back in. So I just wanted to make sure that I'm here.
Is everybody else is okay?
Sam, are you here?
Yes. I
Okay.
think maybe.
Okay, I guess I think Katie's gone, so we're gonna go ahead and move on. And again, thank you, Katie. And our next presenter on our agenda is a presentation by Simon Canales, the Brawley High School Superintendent. And I received a message on my phone that he's not able to participate on video, but he will on audio. So I'm not sure if Roseanna's out there somewhere, if he's gonna call in or how we're gonna.
I don't know. I saw
Roseanna,
that.
is
Actually,
he
good
calling
evening.
in?
Actually,
Yeah.
I'm here.
Oh, you're there? Okay, we just can't see you. Okay, well,
You can't
thank
see
you
me.
so much. Thank
No
you so
problem.
much, Mr. Canales, for participating in our meeting today and giving us an update on what's happening with the schools with this coronavirus or COVID-19. You're on board, so please go ahead.
Thank you. And good evening, all. And it's nice to see you all. And I apologize, I'm having some video difficulties on my end. But it's nice to see everybody and hear everybody. I wanted to give a brief update in regards to what's happening within the Brawley Union High School District and get us all on the same page. First of all, though, I'd like to give a shout out to all of our teachers in Brawley and Imperial County because it's National Teacher Appreciation Week. So I want to say thank you for all that they do for all of our students in the community. And additionally, I wanted to acknowledge the staff of BUHS because they were recognized as a U.S. News and World Report Best High School, and they were actually ranked #1 in Imperial County. So a shout out to BUHS.
I saw that. Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. So just a brief update. As all of you know, we entered into the initial phase of distance learning on March 17th, and that continued through April 24th. That period of instruction was considered review and enrichment. And the assignments that were completed during that period of time were only to be used to enhance a student's overall grade at the end of the semester. We entered into the second phase of distance learning on April 27th. That will continue through the end of the semester. And this phase has begun the formal return to graded instruction. And our focus is to hold students harmless during this whole period and just to help them through it. Currently, the district maintains office hours that are open to the public by appointment on Mondays and Wednesdays from 8 to 12 p.m. So if anyone needs to get a hold of anybody in any of the major offices, those offices will be staffed. And appointments with counselors or administration or district services or the registrar are open on those days. We also provide food services to residents 18 and under and on Mondays and Wednesdays from 9:30 to 11:30. And we currently are distributing close to 5,000 meals a week to residents throughout Brawley. The district anticipates offering some form of summer school, whether that continues to be in a distance learning concept or if things subside with the health risk that we're currently facing, potentially in small batches in a traditional setting or a combination of the two. It also anticipates beginning the 2021 school year on August 17, 2020, which was our original calendar date. However, this may take the form of a combination of traditional instruction and distance learning to accommodate smaller groups. We're really focusing on transforming our social distancing concepts and our safety plan, as was alluded to by the health department earlier. The main focus, however, right now is on celebrating the achievements of our seniors. And so a planning committee has been formed to determine all activities. Obviously, we'd love to have traditional graduation ceremonies, but are realistic that they most likely won't happen. We're focused on developing as many activities as possible to honor our seniors' high school experience. This may include virtual ceremonies, school drive-throughs, senior celebrations with family members to pick up diplomas and yearbooks, lawn signs, billboards, advertisements, and fireworks for the entire community. We know these activities can't replace traditional ceremonies, but want to honor our seniors' accomplishments. So if you have any insight, input, or questions, I'd love to answer them for you.
Okay, anybody? I think you did a good job in summarizing everything that's going on right now. So I just have one question as far as I do have a senior that's graduating this year. So of course, very disappointed in the fact that we can't do the traditional, but I do want to make sure that we participate in any of the experiences that will be available. So will that be posted on the website, or how is that all going to be communicated?
Yeah, so we're actually having a special board meeting tomorrow, and we'll focus on enhancing and developing those activities. And our goal is by early next week to put out all of the things that will happen in a timeline.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from council?
I have a question, Mr. Canales. This is Luke Hamby. It sounded like maybe a week or so ago, the governor was talking about starting the school year early to try to catch up. Does it sound like maybe that's gone by the wayside, or he's leaving that up to individual districts?
I think that was a hopeful opinion of his, that something like that could happen, because I think from his concern, it's opening up schools, not necessarily high schools, but preschools and elementary, for workforce to get back to work.
Sure.
So we're actually working with the superintendents of Imperial County in conjunction with the task force from San Diego County. So we're all working towards the same place. And we think that based on what we're doing with our distance learning plan that's in place right now, the plans that we have for summer school, some summer bridge programs potentially, a target for opening up on our traditional date, hopefully with a joint mixture of traditional and distance learning to bring cluster sizes down to manageable factors that can mitigate some of the safety problems, is more likely to happen. So I don't foresee anyone coming back in July in the Imperial County.
Okay.
Mr. Canales, Donnie Wharton here. Just this is probably not the highest of priorities, but just it does get asked. What does the potential fall athletic schedule look like?
That is a major topic of discussion, and unfortunately, the rest of our spring schedule faded away, and so obviously we're trying to gear up for what happens in the fall. We have a new CIF commissioner in San Diego, and he's diligently working on a contingency plan. Obviously, a lot of it aligns with what happens from the state level of CIF, but what we're targeting is the potential for a pushback of a couple of weeks, probably into September. We're trying to wait on a dead period deadline so practices can start, but obviously we're probably going to have to miss a couple of games shaved off the season minimally. There's been discussion of potentially pushing back different sports to different times in the year. So at this point, everything's up in the air, but we're very hopeful that early in the fall, we'll be able to resume those types of activities.
I just had a question. Mr. Canales, I'm understanding that IVC is going to continue distance learning through the fall semester. That was the information that I received. Is that pretty much what's going to happen over there? I don't anticipate that happening with our high school at this point in time.
Most of the higher ed institutions are already moving towards distance learning throughout the first semester. We anticipate coming back in a fashion where we're doing a combined traditional learning experience with some distance learning or independent study. So again, mitigating safety factors, lowering the numbers of students on campus at any one time, putting in all of our social distancing practices, and then getting some one-to-one with students, I think for us is where we want to go.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else? Any other questions?
No question. Just this is George Nava, Mr. Canales. Thank you very much for the update. We appreciate the information. You know, obviously from We just had a recent discussion earlier on this call, if you will, regarding businesses, but the educational community is very important as well. And just so many people that are impacted. So I appreciate that you're working on some plans for the graduating seniors. And if there's anything that we can do to assist, please reach out to us. And we'll do what we can as a council and as a city. Thank you.
Thank you all. And just a couple of tidbits regarding senior experiences. We still are going to move forward with our senior awards night. So we'll probably end up doing that virtually with acknowledging our students and those that receive scholarships. And then also, I think today, Mrs. Munguia sent you all an invitation to participate in video messages for our senior walks. So we'll already do that as well virtually. So if you can participate, we'd love to have you.
Yes, we did receive that. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Canales, and we'll be in touch. And like George said, if you need any assistance from the city, please don't hesitate to call us or email us, and we'll be more than happy to help.
Thank you. Thank you for your support.
Okay, let's see. Okay, that concludes our reports related to the COVID-19. So we're going to move on to item 4B, discussion and potential action to authorize the engineering, design, construction, support services, and construction management services for the water treatment plant valve actuators replacement project to Lee and Rowe Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $156,912. And the backup material is on pages 41 through 57. And we have our engineer Guillermo online here. If we need any, or did you want to do a presentation on that, Guillermo?
Yes, please. Just a brief
update. Okay.
Right information about it. This item is to authorize Lee and Rowe for the design and construction management of this project that requires the replacement of actuators and large diameter valves at the water treatment plant. Recently, excuse me, we have been having issues with some of the actuators that are in charge to open and close the different stages of the water treatment from one phase to the next one. So those are criticals and have been in the queue for a little while. It's just that it's an expensive project. We didn't have, among with others, enough funds to do this, but it's getting to a point that is critical. And the design itself is for about $56,000, and the rest, $93,900, is for the construction management, anticipated for 90 days. And this project was in the budget, but just the actuators, because we didn't have enough money for the valves. But as I mentioned, these valves are getting to a point that they are not functioning properly, and some of the staff had to move them manually, which it takes a lot of time and effort. And so that's the reason to bring it to the council.
Okay.
Any questions that you have?
Any questions from council? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved. This is Sam.
I'll second. This is George. Okay, I think Luke beat me. I don't know.
I did.
Okay,
Luke beat me.
Sam and Luke, okay.
Luke.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries.
I said aye before Luke did, though, just so you know.
Thank you, Guillermo. We'll go ahead and move on to the next item, which is yours also. Item 4C, discussion and potential action to authorize the execution of a maintenance service agreement with Clay Valve Company for the Brawley Water Treatment Plant's Clay valves in an amount not to exceed $25,539.77. And the backup material on that is on pages 58 through 60. Guillermo?
Yes, again, this project was scheduled and was included on the budget. And these check valves prevents the water backflow on the 5 distribution pumps and 3 backwash pumps. And recently, 2 of them were rehabilitated, and when they opened it, they found that are in very bad shape, and it is anticipated that the rest are in similar shape because they were installed at the same time, and they have been working, alternating throughout the plant. These valves, check valves are required to properly function the plant. And again, it's in critical condition now because all this equipment was installed, about year 2000 when the plant was put in commission. Any questions that you have?
Any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved. This is Couchman.
I guess Donnie's up. I'll second that.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you very much, Guillermo.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to item 4D, discussion and staff direction regarding the fiscal year 2020-2021 revised budget meeting schedule. And that's on page 61. Roseanna? Did you want to?
Thank you for the queue-up. We do have a document that we've included in the backup this evening, and it is revisiting a topic that has been before the council previously prior to COVID-19. So as a result of COVID-19, our normal schedule for budget preparation was temporarily delayed. And with the help of our finance director, we have a new schedule that we'd like to discuss with you tonight. And we do have Mr. Salcido here on the screen, and with that, I'll hand off to him.
Okay.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. As the city manager had just mentioned, due to the COVID pandemic, we had to postpone our regularly scheduled meetings for the budget. So from my perspective, as your finance director, the goal is still to have a budget adopted for the next year by the end of this fiscal year. We only have 3 scheduled regular meetings. So before you, what we've done is combine the general fund, enterprise special funds workshop into one. I know that's going to make for a long evening or day. But being with the strategy of only having 3 meetings left, this condensed version has 1 meeting for the strategic planning session, and then the second meeting for the actual details of the various funds, as I mentioned, and then with tentatively scheduled for the final meeting in June, overall budget adoption. Easy for me to say, right? So before you, that's what we have. We're open to your schedule and availability or any suggestions, changes, what have you.
Well, I'm looking at next week. I don't know, is the council available for a meeting next week for the strategic planning session?
Certainly available. Are you talking about a Zoom meeting or in person?
Yes.
I guess we're still doing Zoom meetings. I don't know until some of this, unless some of these things are relaxed. We could attempt to have a meeting with some of us there at the chamber and some of us on video, or if I'm not sure if we could all do the 6 feet distancing if we all met in person.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I may have, if I could make a potential suggestion, I know there's some more work we need to do with respect to, I think it might even be related to the more broader topic of reopening and all that, but maybe there's some consideration for a method for us to meet with social distancing guidelines, potentially in place. I think some of our other neighboring cities have done some kind of hybrid approach. But with that, maybe I'm just throwing this out, the suggestion of usually with strategic planning, especially in a time like this, we might be a little bit more on point and just setting a direction for budget with respect to, the crisis and everything we're involved in. So would there be any appetite for just tacking that on to the next meeting, giving us a little more time for potentially having the right venue and having some kind of social distancing potential for us to meet either in person or partially in person? Maybe not all of us. I don't know. I think it needs to be maybe discussed in a little bit more detail, but I think it would be, productive and nice if we're able to do that and do that safely in the upcoming meeting on the 19th. I don't know. I'm just putting that out for discussion.
Any input from the rest of you?
This is George. Just a comment with respect to that and my own opinion as well. I think, with the county and the state announcing plans, to open up parts of the county, at least as soon as this Friday, I think it's important that we have that information. It's just going to be, and I mentioned it earlier, it's going to be tough on this city. We know that. And so I think a little bit more information that we can get would be valuable in our decision making. So I'd be interested in seeing if we can do something a little bit later, like at our second meeting of this month. The one thing I'll mention, I do think it's important that we meet in person somehow so we can accommodate that. Zoom certainly is good for the business at hand that needs to take place, and for that's really we're just adopting like consent items and that sort of thing, and for some updates, but for real information that needs to require some thought and some input, I'd prefer to do that in person so we can maybe accommodate that somehow and abide by social distancing guidelines, and that can be broadcast for the public. So that way they don't necessarily need to be in attendance, so we can limit the number of people there physically. But just food for thought. Anyway, thank you.
Luke or Sam, you have any input on that?
Well, I think the 19th is fine. I think we should meet face to face though. We'll try to social distance as much as possible. We can all wear masks if that's necessary, but I think we need to meet.
Okay. I mean, it sounds like that's what I was thinking, that we either have to do part of us there or all of us there. And maybe, like you said, maybe by then, some of these things will be a little more relaxed and we'll be able to
Awesome.
sit 6 feet apart or whatever to do that.
I don't want to meet face to face with Sam though.
No, I'm gonna sit next
I'll
to
put him
George.
behind you. How about that?
I've decided to sit next to George. I want to sit as close to George as I can get.
There you go.
No, I think we should start early though for this meeting. If we're going to discuss a lot of things in a regular meeting, and
because I don't know how long the regular agenda. Sometimes we don't think we're going to have a lot of items, but it usually ends up being a longer meeting. So maybe we can go ahead. Luke, did you have any input?
Maybe a 4 o'clock start.
Yeah, I concur. We should start early, but I think we're going to have to prepare ourselves for some long meetings for quite a while, and because it's going to be difficult all over, and there's going to be a lot of decisions that we're going to have to make over the next 6 months to a year. So yeah, I'm fine with tacking that on to the next regular scheduled meeting, May 19th, and the earlier the better, really.
Yeah, because if we start sooner, I think it'll be better, because Sam's already fallen asleep on his couch right there.
Yeah, I need to get in person because I'm going to fall asleep every time any of you talk. But that's just me,
I've been calling on him, and I wake him up every time somebody.
Yeah, you try. My question is, I think on the May 19th meeting, we may have a very long meeting because I believe we're going to get some input on business opening and stuff. So I think there's going to be some topics for discussion there at our regular meeting. So the earlier the better, I think, for budget purposes, because I think we're going to get input, we're going to get reports, and we may also get some people that want to come or want to tell us something about the opening and that they're going to have to get open. I mean, the longer we head towards the end of May, I think the more activity we're going to see out there within the business community. So
we normally start our meetings at 6, and with 2 hours, if we started at 4, would 2 hours be sufficient for that strategic planning part of it, or do we need to start even earlier, like at 3 o'clock or something?
What does Tyler think?
Tyler?
I think 4 o'clock would be sufficient, I believe. Of course, I've only been through one with the city of Brawley. In the past, I'm not quite sure how long they've been running, but I would think, my opinion, 2 hours would be sufficient.
You think, Roseanna?
Yes.
That's okay. 4 p.m. then?
If the council wants to consider alternative venues, we could look at potentially opening up the library for that activity. The only trade-off will be the audio equipment isn't in play to pick up sound. So we'd need to, if there's a desire to have live broadcast, it needs to be accomplished with bringing in a crew.
Can we do it here? Can we do it in the chamber?
I think it'd be easier to just do it in our regular council chambers, and we don't have to, make other arrangements. Other than the distancing, I think we'll be able to do that. Pretty sure.
We can take everybody's temperature. We can do all that kind of stuff if we need to. I mean,
okay, I need my space. I'll spread my arms out like that. You guys have to be on the other side. Okay, so 4 o'clock on May 19th.
All right.
Okay.
Sam, you're not allowed to bring your lazy boy. Sorry.
Hey, you know what? I can fall asleep in the chair at the meeting. I don't have any problem.
Okay, then the next item, the next date that we want to set is for the General Fund Enterprise Special Funds Workshop, and that's in June. And you want us to provide you with a date for that one. The regular meeting is on the 16th.
The regular meeting would be on the 2nd or the 16th. The 16th is the last meeting of the month.
Okay.
That's currently scheduled.
I suggest the 2nd that we discuss this, at least on the 2nd, maybe have another meeting that started at 4. And general fund generally is a more intense topic. So maybe we need to do something with that. But
it would, Sam, maybe along those lines, if we do wait, I was thinking of one of two things. Either this is a standalone meeting, perhaps the following week in May 26th, so we get that done.
You mean May 26th after the 19th meeting, May 26th?
Yeah, it would be the following week. That's one idea. Or if we do go with the 2nd, would there be any thought to maybe doing something, even if we need to, again, same thing, be slightly altered process or procedure, but where we do something maybe even midday focused on general fund, and then we can either reconvene and come back for the regular meeting in the evening, but meaning kind of separating the two. Or again, it could be a long time. I'm just thinking of a break in the middle, because I'm thinking general fund should garner all of our attention, and then if we're putting enterprise with it, it's going to be a very thorough, and we want to give it that time and not have the pressure of the regular meeting. So either separating it on the day of the 2nd, or we have a standalone potentially on the 26th. And I would be open myself, so I'm just throwing that out.
I'm open.
I'm open either.
Either one would work, actually.
I'm open either time.
Tyler and Roseanna, since you guys are the staff, which one would you prefer? That we do it all on the same day as the meeting, and to maybe take a break, or have a meeting the week on the 26th?
We're here to support the council's process. Typically, the general fund discussion is probably the most challenging, whereas enterprise and special funds are more of getting the council a refresher on capital projects that are prioritized for the next fiscal year. So that it's kind of more list oriented on the capital and enterprise, on the enterprise and special funds, but general fund tends to be the far more challenging topic to take on because of trade-offs.
Madam Mayor, maybe, why don't we, if there's not opposition, of consider the 26th, that way we can focus on that. And if we need to start a little earlier, just so it doesn't run, late into the evening, maybe that could be like a 4 or 5 o'clock start. Again, I'm just throwing it out. If not, that's fine, evening. And just like we've done in the past, maybe a little bit more workshop style where we can really kind of roll our sleeves up. And I think there's some detail there and some good discussion that we can have focused on that.
Tyler, since you had indicated June, does that give you enough time to prepare all the information that we're going to need for the 26th?
As Roseanna had said, that we're here to serve at your direction. Strategic planning is going to dictate really what comes out of there, how much effort that this is going to take. That's part of the equation. If I was just considering myself, my selfish self, I would prefer June 2nd, maybe splitting the general fund and then having a special meeting between June 2nd and the 16th. But like I said, we can make whatever work, but not knowing where we're going to go from strategic planning totally, it's a little tough to say that May 26th.
Why don't we go ahead and then plan for the 2nd then?
That's fine.
Are we expecting, Madam Mayor, are we expecting public input into this meeting for the general fund? And if so, a lot of that can depend upon what timing we have for it. I'm concerned about a daytime meeting if people are working. If we're somewhat out of this quarantine type thing, we may have more public input. But by June the 2nd, we may see a break in that. But I don't know, the 26th, we probably wouldn't. But I'm thinking for the 2nd, we may see more public input. But we have to be careful about people that work are not going to be able to attend the meeting. And
Sam,
so that's
I think we were suggesting like we have that meeting and then still have our regular meeting. So we're still going to have a series of meetings. So hopefully ample opportunity to take in public comment. And even if it's that evening or however we do the 2nd.
That's fine.
And then if I'm not mistaken, usually sometimes we even require a second meeting to follow up our general fund meeting. So I think it's going to be whatever it's going to take, to do it. And we certainly will be accommodating to the public input, I'm sure.
Got it. That's fine. What time on June the 2nd? The regular meeting time or earlier?
Well, based on what you were saying, as far as the public wanting to attend our meeting for input, maybe we should just keep the regular time then on that one. But that'll make for a very long meeting, right?
Do we want to maybe split it like Donnie had suggested? Maybe we meet earlier and then we bring that topic back to the regular meeting for some continued discussion, maybe a briefer discussion on regular meeting, and then move forward? Would that be better, so that we have a couple of hours, maybe with a break in between, where we kind of hash some things out. Then we can do like kind of a report, but also some additional discussion.
Yeah, if there's public there.
Yeah, that would be better, I think.
This is George, just an input with respect to maybe dividing that. It may even make more sense to start early that day. We know we got a dedicated day early, 9, 10 in the morning, then do it for a couple hours, then come back later. I mean, just so we have time in between the two meetings to do the things that we need to do for our own businesses and that sort of thing. But it gives us some time to at least clear our minds a little bit, because we all know when you sit there for so long and going over, budget figures and everything else, it gets very, very long. And and I think, honestly, we're going to have a lot to consider during these meetings. So
I think so.
I mean, maybe a greater gap if we start early and then, come back at our regular meeting later. Just my 2 cents.
That's okay with me.
If we were to start the meeting like you indicated, George, if we started like at 10 o'clock and broke at at noon, but that wouldn't be long enough for the what time, what time frame would you suggest?
I mean, if we started that morning at 9 and we opened it up until 12, maybe we finish sooner. Great. And then we break and then come back for a regular meeting. I mean, I know it's a full day, but, you know, we've had to adjust our schedules, you know, because of everything else that's taken place. So that's just a suggestion. It's up to the rest of you. I can accommodate that just because I know that
That sounds
I
good.
flex my schedule, but it's up to everybody else too.
I can do that.
That sounds good.
Okay. Luke, you have any input? Is that good?
That's fine. It works for me. 9 a.m. on June 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
Sorry, Mayor, but for clarification, that's general fund only with special enterprise funds to be determined on this next item, right?
I think so.
Okay.
That's fine. Okay.
Does that work for everybody?
Roseanna has a,
You had a
Roseanna has
question
a
in your
face.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
Roseanna has a question in her face.
yes,
Yeah.
and so the enterprise and special funds portion would be at 6 p.m. that day or on a different day?
I think, Roseanna, if possible, I see it there listed together with a slash, so I assumed we were going to do it all in kind of
Okay.
one big session. But if not, if for whatever reason, maybe kind of to George's point, if we're not done by noon, if there is
Mhm.
carryover, maybe there's a placehold in the regular meeting for us to either finish up or follow up. So I think it'll give us ample time between two different sessions, maybe to work through all that. But I would assume we might be able to get through it all in the morning session.
In the 3 hours? Okay. We may. And like Donnie says, if we don't, then we can always take it up in part of the regular meeting.
And we
Okay,
could also have another special meeting if we need to.
that's true. I mean, you just don't know how long that's going to take us, that general fund. Unless we have it all figured out before we get there. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Okay, then those are the dates and times. And then we're going to move on to departmental reports. And we're going to, did you want to cover any of these reports, Roseanna, or are they just part of the record?
We do have under departmental reports several of our directors on standby for a quick
Okay.
review if you'd
Take a
like
minute.
those reports.
Okay.
And so the
Do we
first
have,
is Shirley
Shirley-
Benias.
yes, for the personnel and risk management.
Madam
Hi,
Mayor,
Shirley.
Council. Hi, how are you all? I'm glad
Good,
to see you
good.
all healthy
Hello.
and well.
Good to see you too.
Oh, thank you. It's good to be back into the swing of things, I hope. And going forward, we still have 10 openings overall. We do have 3 dispatchers and backgrounds, as well as 2 police officers and backgrounds. So we are continuing with the interview process via Zoom. It's working quite well, and it's convenient for all concerned. So that's doing really well. Public Works is moving right along. We're finally filling some positions there. As soon as we can meet in one room, we'll introduce you to a new hire that happened for utility worker 1. And I also have our wastewater treatment maintenance worker in backgrounds as well. So of course, I'll answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Any questions? Did you say, I'm sorry, I might have missed on the police officers. Do we have some in background, did you say?
Yes, ma'am, we do. We have 3, and of course, Chief Shepard could correct me, but my understanding, we have 3 in backgrounds. We've had 2 different interviews in the last 30 days. So as soon as the applications are received, we set it up via Zoom and get the process going. So we can capitalize on any applications we receive.
Okay, thank you very much. I
Thank
don't think we
you.
have any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to, let's see, Guillermo, update on the emergency construction project at the Brawley Water Treatment Plant to replace components of 2 sedimentation basins and emergency purchase of sewage pumps for lift station number 1.
It's regarding the status of the water treatment plant sedimentation basins component replacement project. The emergency continues. The sedimentation basin rehabilitated continues to produce water as expected. The trough have been delayed by a week and will be on the site on May 15. The contractor is proposing to remove the chains and flight of basin number 2 while keeping the basin number 1 in operation. Have the basin number 2 rehabilitated, and when the trough arrive, they will complete the basin number 2 and then empty the basin number 1 and install the trough. Project is expected to be completed by the end of June. So the sedimentation basin number 1 is fully operating. The only parts that are missing are the trough. And instead of wait for them to complete and switch to basin number 2, contractor is proposing to switch to number 2 right now. And when the trough arrive, go back to sedimentation basin number 1 and install and complete it. Any questions?
No, I don't think so. When is the anticipated completion, more or less?
By the end of June,
Okay.
complete the full project.
Okay, thank you, Guillermo.
Regarding lift station number 1 pumps replacement project, the emergency continues. The contractor Environmental Water Solutions anticipates to have the pump skid built and ready by Friday, May 8, with the installation of pumps at the lift station number 1 on or before May 15. The contractor will confirm the timeline. Any questions on lift station number 1?
Nope.
No, all good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and we're going to move on then to item 5C. It's an update on the emergency replacement of the 3 failing AC units at the Brawley Police Department, presented by our interim police chief, Scott Shepard. We're ready for you, Mr. Shepard.
Hi, good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. I wanted to give you an update on the purchase and installation of the 3 air conditioning units. And one is a smaller unit. It was already put in the records division, and lots of smiling faces by those employees. They're super happy. Our first big one is the first of 2 10-ton units, went on the roof today, and they're wiring it up at about 5 p.m. this afternoon. So they're getting that going, and the second one they expect to come in a couple of days. So that'll get either installed either Thursday or Friday. So it's moving along. The most important news from a fiscal standpoint, we were approved to be able to use asset forfeiture for the majority of that cost. So according to Tyler in finance, he said the labor would have to be covered with general fund, but the rest of that project could be paid for with asset forfeiture.
Very good. Congratulations. Whoever took care of that, that's great. So how much money are we talking about as far as general fund labor costs? Just an idea, do you know?
Tyler, are you there?
Okay, if he's not, that's fine. That's still great. That's still great news.
Yeah, I apologize. I think he had the separated amounts. He briefed me on it this afternoon that there was a difference in what could be used and what couldn't.
Yeah, there's a distinction between the installation has to be separated from the actual unit. They will only reimburse for the units themselves. The city will be utilizing a limited portion of the total project cost for installation. And Tyler, it looks like he's rejoined us. Tyler,
he's there.
Well, Chief Shepard always tries to get me, catch me taking off my tie and jacket and throwing me back on here. It didn't work this time.
I'm sorry. I had it was a follow-up question. Sorry.
So originally, if I could just give a little background on the financing end of it real quick. Originally, DOJ denied asset forfeiture usage. So we scheduled a call with our city planner, Gordon, and the DOJ, and actually one of their Washington, D.C. lawyers. And due to Gordon's insistence and dialogue with them, they finally decided that we could get that portion covered. So that wasn't finance. That was Gordon's that was able to get that accomplished for us.
That's great.
Disclosure there. As far as the breakout between the two, I was reviewing the original quote. It's not broken out specifically. So we're reaching out to the contractor to get that broken out on, so we'll have a idea. Right now, I can't tell you the exact number between the two.
Okay. But I mean, the majority was covered, so that's great news. And I guess we have to thank Gordon for that also, for his
Yes.
hard doing that. Thank you. Thank all three of you, and thank Roseanna too for her support. Okay, moving on to informational reports. Let's see.
Any questions?
So included in the backup are minutes from the various commissions and our library board. It is noted we typically present these items on a quarterly basis. Because our bodies have not been meeting with COVID-19, there are some draft minutes that are contained. And I do want to note for the record that there are a couple of corrections that have been noted as necessary. So with that, if you have any specific questions on the work of the individual bodies, we're happy to answer them.
No questions from me. Anybody? Any questions? Okay. All right. Thank you, Roseanna. Moving on to city council member reports. Let's see. I guess we'll start with Councilman Wharton.
Had to come off mute. Thank you, Madam Mayor. My only update is just the numerous conversations over the past week and a half around reopening, lots of inquiries from business, various sectors. And so I know we already had those discussions at the top of this meeting. I look forward to working with council, look forward to working with our healthcare partners, the county, and obviously our community members to work through those as I think we've begun that process already. So without getting into those specifics, again, just look forward to doing that. And again, very grateful for the updates today. I think it'll help us toward that discussion.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Nava?
I'll echo some of the comments that Councilmember Wharton shared, which is I've had multiple discussions as well with business and community members here in Brawley, and they're anxious to get opened up, but they want to do it in a safe manner. I know we are very limited as a city as to what we can do. A lot of it's governed by the state or the county, and quite honestly, we don't have any idea of what the business community is going to be like in a few weeks or in a few months. It's hard to tell. But I think one thing that we can do is just continue to support as much as possible by providing information, whether it's the information that the county is providing us or the state, but getting that out there to our business community as much as possible and supporting them whenever we can. But it's going to be a tough road ahead, not just for small business and even large industry out here, but it's going to be a tough road ahead for this city of Brawley. I mean, I think we're all seeing it. It's going to be very, very, very challenging. So fiscally and in every other way. So I just want to thank everybody on staff and the public for being patient. You know, we're all going through it together. So it's not anyone on their own. You know, I had this a conversation with Councilmember Wharton earlier in the week, and it was just saying that, making that same comment. It's like everyone's together on this, you know, nobody's alone. So it's going to be challenging for everybody. And it's challenging for me in my business. It's challenging for everybody else in business. Some people aren't even in business. And so let's just continue to do what we can as elected officials to be the advocates for them. And I've mentioned it before, and I'll bring it up at our meeting to be scheduled, but there has to be a way for us to be able to utilize our budgeted money, whether it's enterprise funds, you know, in a way that's going to help our community. And so I know that, you know, the state of California has imposed some things on every business throughout the state, but there is ramifications for all those things. And you know, a lot of the things that we have access to, or some of them are within our control, and some are the things that we can impact, but some of the things that are completely out of our control. So anyway, I'll go on a long rambling conversation here, but I do want to let you all know that we have a lot to discuss, and you know, we need to look out for the public here in total. So anyway, those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Let's see. Councilman Couchman.
Yes. Just some concerns. I think that I've been receiving some calls from business people within our community. I think there's a lack of information in some ways going out to them regarding their status, and whether they can open or whether they can't open, and what they can do and what they can't do. And I believe, as George indicated, that we need to support the business. We need to attempt to lobby or at least advocate for them at the state level and at the county level in order to get those businesses back into operation. I think we're all going to see the impacts of all of this for the next 6 months, year, or whatever down the line. And so I think it's very, very important, though, that we do all we can do to get business back up and running. I think ultimately, as I pass through the city of Brawley, I see the people pretty much doing a fairly decent job of getting out there, getting things going. Restaurants are surviving, some of them in a very precarious kind of situation, but they are surviving. Some are actually doing, I think, okay. They're not making a lot of money, but I mean, they are still surviving. And I think that's important. I do think that our people that do services such as the hair cutting and styling and all of that stuff, I think they're suffering unduly based upon this, and they have some issues with the state and also, locally. But I think we need to work at getting them open in some safe fashion, because I think people need the service, number one, but I also think the business needs to be open and making money. And they don't make any money just sitting there. Now, some of them don't have employees, and so it's really just the business owner themselves. And so I think we need to do everything we can do to advocate for the business. I'm hoping that we get some strides going in the next couple of weeks, get some things going on, and get some decisions made both at the state level and at the county level and at our city level for these. And I'm sure we're going to have additional discussions. I do see the city staff doing their job every day. Appreciate that, and I'm thankful for that. And I know that there's a lot of pressure on everyone out there. So with that, everybody needs to stay safe, and we'll be meeting again shortly. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Hamby.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't have a lot to report. Same kind of interaction as the rest of the council, where a lot of people are calling and concerned about reopening schedules, and I not 50-50, but I've had some people that are also concerned about opening too fast. Concerned for their safety and the safety of the different employees. But it's been driven home to me recently that, while our mandate was to flatten the curve, it certainly never has been about eliminating the risk of spread of infection. That's on the table, and it always will be till this thing plays out. And if it's like an annual flu where it mutates and changes strains each year, we're going to have to figure out how to work with this thing each year, and hopefully learn to live with it without the extreme measures that we've had to take this year, as it's been new to us. But yes, we need to open in a safe and orderly fashion, but it's appearing that the quicker the better for so many of these businesses. And I agree with what Sam said, that some of these businesses, such as barbers and cosmetology, have such extreme measures for disinfection and cleanliness anyway. It would be kind of nice to see some of these state organizations lobbying on their behalf so that they can get back up and running at a client at a time or what have you. So many of these smaller salons are very flexible with their opening times, and so they'd be happy to take one customer at a time if they can just get back up and running. But I do believe that we are all, as a council and as city management, going to have to steel ourselves for what's to come, be prepared for a lot of extra work compared to previous years. Not that we've sat back in any fashion, but there's just going to be so much required of all of us moving forward from this as we start to gain traction and reopen. So you're all in my prayers, and as well as city employees and the rest of our county. So it'll be very interesting to see how the rest of this year plays out. But I believe that if we we band together and we just decide that we're going to work hard, that we will get through it and figure out how we're going to take care of it next year if it comes back around. So that's it for my report.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Hamby. Basically, I have about the same information to share, just hearing from the community. And it was promising to hear the report from the county, because I'm looking forward to some positive information at the end of this week that we can share with the businesses, because they're looking to us for direction. They're looking to us to figure out, what's the next step. And I think we all feel their pain, and we want to be able to help them and do whatever we can for them. And just want to offer that we are here for the community. So if there's any of you out there in businesses that need any assistance from us, please don't hesitate to call us, and we'll do what we can to get you the information that you need to get back into business, or answer any questions that you may have regarding legality of things, or like we talked about, directives and what you need to do to make sure that everybody stays safe and follows all the regulations. So just, we're hoping after today's meeting that we will get some really good, valid information, and we'll be able to assist everybody out there in the community, whether they're employees or business owners. We're here to serve them. We're here to serve everybody. And I do appreciate all the assistance from our staff. We wouldn't be able to do it by ourselves. So thank you. And again, looking forward to this coming to an end, and that we can get back to regular business. Thank you. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and go on to City Manager report. Roseanna?
Thank you, Mayor Kastner-Howdegi. I do want to share with the council that over the weekend, we were able as a city to package a number of requests and present them to the County of Imperial Health Department for consideration of a more aggressive timeline than what's been proposed to date. And they're kind of clustered under areas that you've all mentioned in your comments earlier this evening. They include barbershops, hair salons, nail salons, dog grooming, as well as fitness facilities. The great benefit of convening around a number of shared principles today, valley-wide, was the chance to hear directly from Dr. Monday, the reassurance that he works for all of our cities and the County of Imperial, and is here to ensure that business recovery is within our reach, in as much as the times will make possible. So he was able to share a great deal of pragmatism in key areas, and also give us an update on some of the advocacy efforts he's undertaking at the state level as a result of our area being unique. And the governor's comments to date have suggested that unique characteristics will be considered. So we're looking forward to pushing those message points, and hopefully sharing with our community members the kinds of updates that are going to allow them to open with some modest measures in place. So we will be sharing as staff regular updates with the council as this topic progresses, and as Mr. Lamore and Ms. Angulo referred to earlier this evening, once the state guidance is provided, we'll have a much better sense of what the next steps will be for this phase 2. So Friday openings in the key areas, we'll be doing our part to make sure our business operators are aware of what is permitted. And as those next stage of stage 2 roll out, we'll be both pushing the envelope on that front and doing our best to be a reliable source of information in a very confusing time for our community members. I also would like to note on the COVID topic a special thanks. We did have a remarkably generous meal provided to Fire Station number 1 and number 2, and it was as a result of a coordinated effort the ag community, specifically the Imperial County Farm Bureau, the Imperial Valley Vegetable Growers Association, IVH2O, and our very own Kate Pracola, Brawley resident, working hard to assemble a number of items for our personnel who have been working diligently to serve our community. So want to extend special thanks to Kay and the group she assembled to put together a really thoughtful offering to our fire stations. Last but not least, I did want to share I was able to pull a quick recap of the PDAC units that were reported a little bit earlier in tonight's agenda. The total cost, it's not broken out from units themselves and installation, but was in the ballpark of $32,000. So we'll be providing you with that additional breakout as it's available, but obviously a considerable sum for use of asset forfeiture in lieu of general fund.
That's cool.
Yeah, thank you.
And then last but not least, included in the backup of the agenda is a note about summer 2020 Parks and Recreation staffing. And what might be helpful for the council to receive as an update is typically around the spring break period for high school and local either community college or university environments, we launch our annual recruitment for summer hiring. And, you know, I was hired during that time in high school and college, and I know it, we've come to be an employer for many, many young people coming up through the decades in Brawley. As a result of our local emergency declaration and the timing of COVID-19, we placed on hold these activities last month. And what I wanted to be sure and let council know is, as we face ongoing uncertainty about what's going to be allowed or not allowed in the summer months, the window to kind of make up for lost time of that recruitment process is rapidly shrinking. So there's no decision here for you tonight to consider. It's just to let you know we're well into May. I don't believe any of our local jurisdictions valley-wide have taken any absolute action to cancel summer rec programming. Without the health department's sign off on the safety of those activities, you know, I think we would be taking some risk to devote the bandwidth to that activity right now without it being lost to other priorities. So I just wanted to make sure that I took a moment to update you on where we are on that front. The bulk of our activities take place, right in the center of summer. And if we're going to staff up for that activity, we're going to need to move rapidly. So I don't know if council has any thoughts you want to share right now, but more than anything, I just wanted to be transparent about where we stand in the process.
I think that's a tough call to make at this point, Roseanna. It's really difficult. I mean, considering we're not sure what the plan is to reopen things, it's just very difficult to say, to put a halt on things. But I think that's a realistic question and consideration. I mean, we have to consider the fact we may not be opening those programs up this year. So, but I think the sooner that we can get the message out, it's important, just because, some people, they have had their children in those different programs that span most of the day. So just something to consider.
We do hire approximately 40 individuals during the summer months. So, obviously it's a large number of positions to rapidly recruit for. One of the questions we've been exploring as staff is, especially as the regional dialogue continues, is trying to figure out if there might be some pool activities we could anticipate during the summer. And if those are to resume, then maybe developing a call list of lifeguards, because we don't currently have any on call as a result of our activities ceasing. We do have some issues at the restroom facilities and showers within the Lions Center that do need to be prioritized if we're bringing large-scale use back. But we're looking at ways to modify what we do in light of that outstanding work that has to be performed to address some rain damage that occurred.
I think the hard part to gauge is whether or not the public will be willing to come back. So that's the hard gauge there. I don't know if there's a simple way, and there is. I mean, there's like SurveyMonkey or something, like a very, very simple survey that can be taken by the, just a real simple question. Don't make it long. Just, hey, are you still willing to participate in events if we were to have them this summer? I mean, something like that for the public to get out, just to get a better idea. I don't know.
The other topic that has bubbled at the same time is the question that goes something like this. If my workplace is going to allow me to go back to work, what activities can I rely on as a safe place to take my kids? So, those are, I think, some of the very real issues we're going to be facing as a community here in the near future.
Yeah, along the lines of what you talked about the pool, Roseanna, I just wonder if there are activities there or at the splash pad where extra staff can be mobilized quickly, and maybe extended hours and offerings can be had at both the pool and the splash pad, because those are systems that are running so much of the time anyway, as opposed to some of the things like team sports that are much harder to put together and mobilize on short notice.
Mm-hmm. Obviously we need to work very closely with public health on those types of activities. I know for the splash pad in particular, there are a different set of disinfecting concerns as a result of COVID. With the pool, the discussions that I've been privy to date, both here and outside of our region as other cities grapple with it, is reducing the number of swimmers at any one time, to, let's say, for instance, a single swimmer per lane, really bringing down the level of use permitted. So, those might be some things for the city to consider in the not so distant future, if we've got the buy-in of our health department to support the activity.
And I guess on the other side of that is, if there is any savings by canceling some of the programs that had been planned, whether some of that money can be committed to other programs within the offerings of the pool and the splash pad, if we're able to get those up and running per the health department's orders. If any of those resources can be thrown at that, or if we're just going to be completely broke because of everything else that's happened with COVID.
Well, we kind of get it on two ends, right? It's the hiring component, is that not hiring reduces employee compensation, but the revenues that we were relying upon for the final quarter of this fiscal year have been reduced. So
right.
Are we coming out even, or are we actually still behind? And
right.
We'll have more information coming to you in the not so distant future, but I think I would be remiss to not mention that these are topics that will become very important as decision points in the near future.
The only thing that I had shared with Roseanna is that if there is a possibility that we may be able to start the programs, that maybe we could go ahead and advertise and take applications, but then put on there that some kind of disclaimer, or there's, that there's a possibility that this program will go on this summer, but there's also a possibility that it may not be feasible to have it. Something along that line, and just have the applications on file in case we are able to move forward with one or two of the programs. Like we probably would not be looking at, I wouldn't think, like the summer day program at the Lion Center, but maybe swimming for lifeguards, and I'm not sure what else, but maybe we could do something like that and have them there as in case we are able to move forward, depending on what happens.
So we would need to definitely fire up the engine to make up for lost time. But maybe what we could do at the next meeting is present to council a a description of low risk activity that possibly could be implemented, and what the staffing associated with those strategies would look like, with an update in that format. Just seeing the temperature start to rise, obviously there's going to be a desire for some form of outlet. The Lions Center provides, the largest climate controlled environment in Brawley. So it's kind of unfortunate that we can't utilize that space for that purpose this year. But as you know, community testing may be coming to Brawley.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
I would just say an additional comment, if I could. That's an important decision we have to make, but I don't want to invest too much time in getting applications, vetting them, deciding who will be hired, and then, because that takes a lot of staff time if we're not going to proceed with certain plans. But I think sooner than later, very soon, we need to decide whether or not we're going to proceed with like the pool opening and the splash pad, and then if we're just not going to move forward with like summer day camp. So that I think is very important, but it needs to be decided sooner than later, because it's going to take staff time, it's going to take planning and everything else, and the execution of that plan. So anyway.
Well, we'll come back to you with an update at the next meeting, and if you have any feedback along the way, we're certainly open to receiving it.
Okay. Thank you, Roseanna. Okay, do we have a report from the city attorney?
Nothing at this time.
Okay, from city clerk?
Nothing at this time.
Okay. Okay, that concludes our open session. So we will go ahead and adjourn and go into closed session at this time. And everyone has the phone number to call in?
No, Roseanna, can you please forward the phone number again? I deleted it by mistake, please.
No problem.
Thank you.
And I'll give everybody 5 minutes. How's that?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
5 minutes and 10 seconds.